Game, 1, 2, and...
Paa, tuhod, balikat ulo, itapwetan, may wangat sus. Huwag mong titigan ang hindi sa'yo at maging disenteng tao.
Pare, ang catcalling ay isang uri ng sexual harassment. Di biro ang sexual harassment at di nakakamacho ang pang-aabuso. Isang paalala mula sa Philippine Commission on Women.
As part of the 18-day campaign to end violence against women, Filipino Marespeto Safe Spaces Kasali Tayo, the Empowered Talks podcast joined hands with Zonta Club of Muntinlupa and Environs and Zonta Club of Cavite as we dedicate this special episode to our listeners. We aim to intensify the awareness of Republic Act 11313, and today let's discuss the things that you need to know about the Safe Spaces Act. Alamin at intindihin ang nakapaloob sa batas para mapanatili nating ligtas ang lahat ng miyembro ng ating komunidad mula sa pampublikong espasyo hanggang sa cyberspace. Kayo po ba, do you have or can you recall a time or instance when you didn't feel safe in public space?
This happened way back when I was still working in Makati. I live in Quezon Norte, so you could imagine I am driving my own car and then it takes me around 4 hours just to get home. And ako kasi, just to be safe, and as I was always reminded by my parents, dadaan ako sa mga lugar na alam ko na safe at hindi delikado. And alam niyo naman po, dito sa Cavite, meron nga pong lugar na tinatawag na paliparan. Kasi yung pong lugar na yon, doon po kasi tinatapon ang mga victims ng ambush. So you could imagine that there are places here that are really unsafe. So ako po, para hindi po ako maging target ng crime, I have to wear a cap and a jacket para magmukha akong lalaki. Because a woman who is alone and nagda-drive sa this oras ng gabi, ay maaaring mapahamak. I also make sure that I have a pepper spray or a sharp object just to protect myself.
Oh, grabe, kinikilabutan ako dun sa kinukwento mo because the fear is really there na parang even you're in your own car, you don't feel safe. Di ba sa States nga, nauso yung mga babae, naglalakad na yung keys nila na it's between their fingers. Kasi anytime na may mag-aatake sa kanila, usually ganun eh. You're alone, even if it's, sa parking area, di ba? There was a time sa Manila, naaalala ko, yung na-mention mo, Miss Maricel, na when they're alone, biglang may lalapit sa kanila, either the car will be snatched or sila yung pagsasamantalahan. Pero hindi ka naman palaging may kasama eh, di ba?
Roma, I heard of a story, ang ginagawa ng ibang babae, naglalagay ng parang stuffed toy na mukhang lalaki, di ba? Sa katabi, sa passenger area, para lang pagtingin nung kung sino man ang makakakita sa kanila, mukha silang may kasama.
Oh, parang decoy, ganun.
Decoy, yes, oo. So, lalagyan din nila ng sombrero o kung ano man para magmukhang may kasama sila sa loob ng sasakyan.
So, can you just imagine, tayong mga babae yung nag-a-adjust for this, para lang hindi tayo maharas. Well, in fact, dapat hindi ganun in the first place.
Tama. But, as of now, we have to be very creative in protecting ourselves.
Yes. What about you, Miss Elsie? Do you have any stories that you would like to share to our listeners?
Actually, when I first heard that question, parang I cannot remember a time, no? But suddenly, when I was in high school, that was a long time ago. Siguro, pre-martial law pa. Mga first year high school, ang sabi ng mother ko, huwag kayong sasakay sa jeepney. Syempre, yung mga ganong first year high school, parang sumakay tayo sa jeepney, parang ang saya, di ba? At saka ang pamasahe nun, 25 centavos lang. So, sige. So, syempre kasi, kaya ayaw ni nanay, kasi pag nga naman sa jeepney, dikit-dikit, di ba? Oo, walang space in between. So, sumakay kami, I think we were going to the church or something. merong sumakay na mama, and doon siya sa kasamaang palad, doon siya sa aking katabi sumakay, umupo, no? And then habang umaandar yung sasakyan, parang nakita ko parang ano yun, yung kanyang kamay o daliri, parang kinukuhit niya yung likod ko or something.
Oh my gosh.
So, takot ako noon. Pero kahit natatakot ako, parang umaandar yung isip ko na parang, anong gagawin ko? Yung gano'n, no? So, syempre, halfway na yun, no? Halfway nangyari. And then, nung tingin ko malapit na kami, doon sa bababaan namin, yung mga kasamahan ko naman, syempre nakaharapan ang jeepney, di ba? Hindi nila nakikita na merong nangyayaring ganun kasi nasa likod ko yung kanyang kamay. So, unlike ngayon na, di ba, sa TikTok meron nung signal.
Yes, yung fold mo yung kamay mo.
Yes, na malalaman nila that you need help. Nung dumating na dun sa pupuntahan namin, dalian na kaming bumaba. Pero alam mo, siguro, ayaw ko nung parang manalo siya, no? Ayaw kong manalo siya. So, ang ginawa ko, I think I was holding something, maybe a wallet or a bag, a small bag. Ang pinukpo ko siya, sabi ko, ang bastos mo.
Ang tapang ni Miss Elsie.
Yes, oo. And then, syempre, nung panahon yun, parang wala pa namang masyadong gano'n, di ba? Pero aware na kami kasi laging sinasabi ng nanay ko, kailangan maingat ang mga babae, kailangan, always close your legs, yung mga gano'n, no?
Yes.
So,
I think it's you. Lagi it's the women. It's the women who should do not do this, not wear this, diba? Wag mong isuot yan, wag kang mag-public transport, diba?
Totoo yan, oo.
Oo.
Pero yun nga, kailangan aware lang tayo. At least yun, di ba, yung dito sa panahon ngayon, meron nga niyang TikTok na yan. And then, I've seen a lot of videos online, no, na talagang ang laking tulong ng signal na yon.
Yes, merong recent na news, 'di ba? May na-save silang babae or bata ba, basta may na-save silang tao because yung taong yon ginamit niya yung sign na natutunan niya sa TikTok. And na-save siya from the harasser or kung sino man yung nagtatry na gumawa sa kanya ng masama. Ako naman, my share of this story, I've gone through different iba-iba, from elementary din, may high school, may college, hanggang sa nagtrabaho din ako sa Makati. And ako naman kasi, syempre, office, diba? And gusto mo, you're pretty, maayos ka pa rin magdamit. And hindi mo naman may iwasan na minsan, may mga damit ka na fit, body hugging, diba? Pero, magbubus ka. But it doesn't mean naman na nagsuot ka ng ganon, ibig sabihin, nag-i-invite ka. So there was one time that I was wearing this skirt. Mahaba naman siya, hanggang 3/4 ng binte. So covered naman. Pero hapit. And then, hindi ko alam kung doktor or pasahero. Dumaan siya, but I felt yung genitals niya talaga. And he was, kinukuskus niya talaga. And tinignan ko siya ng masama. And sabi ko sa kanya, anong ginagawa mo? But it took me a couple of minutes to say that sobrang kumakabog yung dibdib ko nung sinabi ko yun. Kasi sobrang, paano kung walang may maniwala sa akin? Paano kung sabihin nila na, kasi ate, ang sikip-sikip niyang gamit mo. Ngayon, di naharas ka. Yun yung fear ko nung time na yun. And that's also the reason kung bakit ko naitanong yan, yung tanong na yan, if you have your share of a story when you didn't feel safe in public space. Kasi po, this is something that's not just happening in the Philippines. Hindi lang sa Pilipinas. International issue din to. And let me share some interesting data here. According po sa study conducted by the UN Women in the UK, kung saan they asked more than 1,000 women to participate in the study, they found out that 97% of women aged 18 to 24 have experienced sexual harassment in public places, and more than 70% of women of all ages have endured such behavior. And I'm very sure I can be sure about this when I say na sa Pilipinas din. Kaya importanteng pag-usapan natin to now more than ever. Kaya ngayon, tulungan natin ang ating mga tagapakinig and viewers today. Ano nga ba ang purpose po ng Safe Spaces Act? What does it do? How can it protect them?
Ang Safe Spaces Act or yung dati kasi ang tawag dito yung Bawal Bastos Law, no? So it is an act defining gender-based sexual harassment in streets, public spaces, online workplaces, and educational or training institutions. Parang update ito nung Bawal Bastos Law. Ang purpose nito ay para maprotektahan lahat from sexual harassment, both in physical and online spaces.
So now it's including na online, kumbaga cyberspace, yung mga posts or mga comments sa Facebook na misogynistic or malaswa, kumbaga. Actually, alam niyo po, just yesterday, there's this famous personality, biker siya, babae. She's giving away, I think, a headset or something. And yung picture niya, she's holding the headset. She is sitting on a saddle. And one of the first comment on Facebook, publicly ang sarap talaga minsan maging saddle na lang. From a guy. I'm sharing this because that's the very reason why you need this and why it's important that we also know that it can be applied online kasi ang dami po talagang those sexually motivated comments. And what can you do? You don't know there's this person. Maybe it's an alias, maybe it's a real name. But in the past, ang ginagawa lang natin, kinikibit-balikat lang natin online. But then now, you can do something about it pala. And ano ba yung coverage or ano yung saklaw ng term na public spaces according dun sa law?
According to the law, ang mga nasasaklaw ng Safe Spaces Act as public places would be yung mga streets and alleys, yung mga simbahan, mga public washrooms, even the malls, mga bars and restaurants. And it also covers yung mga services provided ng Grab, Uber, Angkasa, even the motorcycles, at iba pang mga transport service vehicle services. So yan po ang mga tinatawag natin na public places.
What about po yung mga clubs na where they drink, they dance? It's a place where we flirt, 'di ba? Where we really want to meet someone, 'di ba? Kasama ba 'yon sa sa definition ng public space?
Yes, it is considered a public place.
So ibig sabihin as long as it's accessible ng public, basta pinapasok siya ng tao.
Oo, as long as you mentioned, accessible to the public, then it's considered a public place. And it's covered by the Safe Spaces Act.
And also, you mentioned yung sa transportation, sa loob ng Grab, sa loob ng taxi, di ba? Even the angkas. Kasi I want to give emphasis on public transport kasi po, I even have friends na nahaharas sa loob ng taxi. Like, sometimes, I remember now, I have, yung kunwari, magkukwento lang, but the kwento is really, yung kwento nila may malaswang content. So if that happens, for example, and it's really uncomfortable,
I would advise na you call it out. Kasi anything that offends you, anything that somehow makes you feel uncomfortable, then you have to call it out. And syempre, since you're riding a Grab, then if it escalates, then you can get out or call emergency. That's how you should handle it.
kasi maganda sa Grab, you can report. Sabi mo, yun nga, there's a report feature.
Yeah, there's a report feature wherein alam natin kung sino yung driver, how to contact, and you can put out a review. And they could also seize the franchise for that driver. If proven na talagang there was a case of sexual harassment.
That's good. But if it's, for example, taxi, halimbawa, walang ganong feature, you hailed a regular cab, siguro it's best bumaba ka na lang sa either a barangay hall, mataong area, or even gasoline station. Kasi di ba well-lit naman ang mga gasoline station. That's also pwede nyong gawin. And then you report. You also make sure that when you ride a cab, ako kasi ganun ang naging palagi, pag nag-ride ako ng cab, I send it to my husband, to my friends, so that they know saan ako nakasakay and the plate number of the taxi.
And it's important nakita. Pakita mo sa driver na ginagawa mo yon, no? Na
Yes.
pinupunan mo ng picture.
Oo. Para at least he's aware na he could be possibly reported if he plans on doing something bad or doing something that would offend you.
Kasi minsan kahit hindi ka naman naka sexing damit kahit talaga nakapambahay ka lang, pag babastusin ka eh. 'Di ba? They want to enforce their is it power? They want to enforce their power to you and
Ego trip.
oh yes, oo, yung mga nagtitrip talaga.
So, siguro minsan ang ginagawa ng iba, they pretend that they are talking over the phone to somebody.
Yes.
Diba? Para aware yung driver na pwedeng isuplong siya or alam niya na meron kang kausap. So, pwede mong sabihin, kahit wala kang kausap.
Oo.
You have to be very creative, di ba? Kumbaga lahat na ng pwede mong gawin na drama, di ba? Protect yourself.
Yes.
Totoo. Or di kaya mag-live feed ka na lang. Hi everyone! Nandito ako.
Yeah, that's possible. Maraming gumagawa niyan. Kunyari, nagba-vlog ka.
So ngayon nakasakay na ako sa taxi, papunta ako ng Cubao. Di ba? Ganun.
Yeah, hello kuya, say hi.
Para makita yung mukha nung taxi driver, di ba? So speaking of that, ano ba yung mga acto or acts na nako-consider as harassment under the Safe Spaces Act? I remember there's catcalling. Ano po ba yung catcalling sa more common term?
Yung catcalling, halimbawa, medyo malaki yung kita mo, sasabihin sa'yo, oy, crispy pata. or ano
Sipol.
Yung wolf whistling yun, no? Yung parang sexy whistle.
Woohoo! Ganon.
Yan, wolf whistling yan. And catcalling pa, is sabihin sa'yo, pangit, o yung basta hindi maganda, pag na hindi mo tatanggapin. Okay, so kahit na naka-swimsuit ka, nasa beach ka, sasabihin sa'yo, wow, legs. So, yun. Catcalling na yun.
What about other acts po? Ano po yung kasama doon sa law na can be considered harassment?
Ang mga akto na pwedeng makonsider na form of harassment could be yung pagkuha ng personal details mo without, kumbaga parang to the point na ikaw ay napipilitan lang. Pati yung nangyari nga, yung na-mention mo kanina, yung possible na panghihipo, diba? Yan ay mga acts of sexual harassment.
Can we explain a little further yung kinukuha yung details mo?
Now, for example, nangyari sa isang workplace, nakasakay ka sa elevator, and then there's a person, let's say a guy, who could be interested in you. And then, he forces you to give out information about yourself, like your name, pwede ko ba makuha yung number mo, miss? So, that could be a possible act of harassment. Na kapag, kunyari, kinall out mo na hindi mo pwedeng kunin, and then it happens repeatedly, then you could file, a report regarding that. Especially kumbaga within the vicinity of the workplace naman yung guy.
And what about if hindi mo binigay, but then he got it from somewhere, and then he contacted you, and you are not comfortable with it? Can you file it can it be a ground for harassment?
Yes, that would be a ground for harassment. Kasi hindi mo na nga binigay in the first place. That means you don't want to be contacted by that person. It puts you in a place na you feel violated and at the same time uncomfortable. So that could be grounds for you to report a sexual harassment.
Oh, nako, 'di ba? Yung sa mga nakakakilig sa telenovela, ng mga Korean novela, pag in real life no harassment pala 'yon. Nakakaloka, 'di ba? Kasi minsan may mga ganung plot twist sa mga stories, 'di ba? Na when we watch it, syempre, for us, nakakakilig naman 'yon. He got her number, blah blah blah. Alam mo yung ini-insist nila that they meet or they get to know each other, pero ayaw nung babae sa una. So, come to think of it, yes, it is harassment. Kasi ayaw mo nga eh. Kasi if in the first place, gusto mong makipagkilala sa kanya, ibinigay mo na yun. The fact na ayaw mong i-share, ibig sabihin, hindi ka komportable sa kanya. Bakit mo ipipilit, diba?
Anything that makes you uncomfortable, that is harassment.
Of course, Pinoys, mahilig tayong magbiro, diba? Mga masasayahin tayong tao. How do you draw the line na OA mo naman, para gino-joke ka lang eh. O diba, tong baklang to, yung mga ganon, diba? Baklang to. Diba? Ikaw, chismosa ka talaga kahit kailan. Diba? Ganon. Paano nila masasabi na this is something like bullying or harassment and this is not something that I should care about or hindi naman to masyadong seryoso?
Yung mga misogynistic slurs, like for example, kasi yun yung mga nakakababa sa pagkababae mo, di ba? Yung misogynistic slurs or comments. Ang ganda niya, dapat pala ako yung nauna. Yung mga
yan, mga ganyang comment, oo. O di kaya, halimbawa, yung sa ex mo, di ba? Parang may gustong maligaw. Sus, wala yan, natry ko na yan eh. Yung mga ganon.
Oo, yung mga ganon.
Wala yan, ako nauna sa'yo. Parang ganyan.
O wala na yung may pagmamalaki.
Yes, that's another. Oo.
Sad to say.
Oo, yung mga nabusted, no? Nabusted na mga boyfriend, na mga brinig. Yan ang sinasabi nila. So they can get even.
May inilagay ako sa notes ko is online sexual harassment or online harassment. Actually, this one is not just for the women, pero ito talaga ang major concern ko dito is yung mga teenagers ang nagiging victim ng online harassment. Kasi syempre, when we are online, hindi mo naman masasabi na, uy, pag nag-comment siya, parang tonong 50 anyos na to, di ba? You don't know eh. Because it's words and comments and basically just a picture. Or maybe sometimes it's not even their picture or it's not even their name. Kaya maraming mga kabataan ang nagiging victim nito. And not just sexual harassment. For example, mga bata na mean, di ba? Parang, pangit mo, para ang arte mo, ganyan-ganyan, di ka pa mamatay. I mean, those are really words that I've seen online. And people were like, oh, gusto mo, puntahan kita dyan sa bahay nyo, bugbugin kita or something like that. Because of course, kids can be naughty. Even like, sabi ko nga kanina, even adults, nasasabihin nila, gino-joke ko lang naman yan. But what can be, like bilang parents po, when you see something, how can you say or how can you tell your kids na, this is not right ha?
Yeah, so anything that makes the youth, especially the kids nowadays, diba? Very rampant yung bashing na sinasabi yung term. Like for example, posted a picture or a video, like for example, a TikTok video. Sasabihin mo ang pangit naman ng sayaw or pangit yung suot. Basta anything that could be degrading in nature or somehow causes the person to be uncomfortable or to doubt yourself or somehow darating sa point yan na madedepress yung bata, di ba? That could be something that could be reported or at least you could talk to with the help of the teacher siguro or someone who knows the person or the other kid, kausapin muna. Call out the action before you report it. Kasi sasabihin naman, ay hindi, nagbibiro lang. Pero the intent is not important eh. It's the person who felt violated. It's the feeling of that person. So things like this that happens, whether comment yan online or sinabi verbally, then it is something that could be considered as a form of harassment.
Sa ngayon kasi, schools and also of course the teachers, the guidance counselor office, they're very much aware, no, of what's going on right now. Bashing online, bashing whenever they see each other face to face. And then of course yung mga put downs, yan, dapat hindi yan nangyayari. But ang importante doon, yun nga, merong processing. Merong processing sa school, may processing ng teachers, and higit sa lahat, ang importante, dapat pinaprocess ng parents sa bahay. No? So,
Yun nga.
wala
oo.
kayo dapat i-edit sa sasabihin. Because when they go out, they can see everything. They can, they experience everything. Wala kayo doon para ipagtanggol sila. Ang kailangan gawin ng parents is kung ano yung nangyayari na alam nila na pwedeng mangyari sa anak nila, sabihin na nila, huwag nang i-edit. No? Kasi kailangan, bago mo palabasin ng bahay ang bata, kailangan may bala. Bigyan nyo sila ng bala.
I love that. Mhm.
Yes, para alam nila kung paano ang gagawin nila, how they're going to defend themselves from the bashers and from the offenders.
So what you are saying, Miss Elsie, Miss Maricel, it's also it starts from home. How you discuss it with your kids, kung may anak kayo or sa pamangkin nyo or kung guardian kayo sa mga minors in your house, you have to talk about it. Kailangan yung pag-usapan ano yung nangyayari sa totoong buhay. Kasi minsan, I think kami rin po yung generation na sa sobrang siguro yung mga pinagdaanan in the past, medyo nabe-baby masyado yung mga nagiging anak, pamangkin, kasi ayaw nila ng hardship for them. Gusto nila, it's like almost a perfect world. But of course, we understand that na gusto mong protektahan yung bata, but at the same time, kailangan din nilang ma-experience or maintindihan na sa totoong buhay, may hindi mabait, may hindi naman talaga friendly, na wala ka namang ginagawa, biglang nagagalit sa'yo, di ba? And sometimes, may biruan kayo magkakapatid, okay lang sa inyo magkakapatid, but when you put it like outside, baka mamaya, people are, not that open-minded, di ba? You have to give your kids the right mindset and also the learnings, no? Na so when they step out, alam nila kung paano mag-go through sa isang sitwasyon if and when mangyari sa kanila or they go through that situation. This is just on the side, but I want to ask you bilang parents, bilang guardians, para sa inyo, when is the right age for kids to have social media? And how do you remind them to be careful? Na hindi sila maging subject ng harassment or baka rin hindi sila yung maging cause na minsan, di ba, biruan lang, yung pala, the other person feels bullied already.
Sa ngayon, parang dapat mature na yung bata, ano? And when, of course, ang maturity, sabi natin, it's something relative naman. Merong 18 years old, 25 years old, di pa mature, no? Pero based sa study, parang pwede mong bigyan kung siya ay 13 na, pwede mong i-allow. Kasi yan yung time na, syempre, bagong teenager yan, no? So medyo, kasi yung elementary, medyo pwede mo pang sabihan na hindi. Pero pag nag-13 yan, parang biglang empowered as a teen, no? So,
excited. Maraming hormones na nangyayari. Yung hormones yun, daming nangyayari. Di ba?
Oo, sasabihin niya, ito, right ko to. So, kailangan mo akong magagaling ng mag-convince yan. Bili mo ako ng cellphone. Kailangan meron na akong mag-open na ako ng aking own Facebook. But of course, you can allow them, but dapat meron laging supervision. No, kaya minsan medyo nagagalit din ako dun sa mga pamangkin ko na may mga anak na maliliit, no? Kaanak pa lang may Facebook page. Ano ba? May Facebook account. Tapos ipe-friend ako. So hindi ko pinapansin.
They wanna be they have Instagram accounts ganon. It's supervised by the parents.
Yes. That's very important.
What about you, Miss Maricel? Anong yung opinion on this?
Yeah, I agree with President Elsie. So it's important that you supervise and you monitor. Ako kasi, I have a teenager, a 13-year-old my son, and I have a preteen na mag-11 years old on November 30. So what I do is, I make myself aware of their interests. Kaya yung TikTok, alam ko yan, Instagram, Facebook. So, kahit paano, I talk to them on what are the acceptable medium to post. Like for example, if they wanted to post about their interests, ito yung mga acceptable. And then at the same time, kasi di ba, technology is very helpful. We have a mesh Wi-Fi and it has an app that allows you to just assign the number of hours that they can use. You can block the websites that are, not for the youth. Kumbaga yung audience is for adults. So I try to block all those websites. And lalo na I have a teenage boy, I also explain to him na you will get to that age and you will be curious. So yun nga, that's when the pep talk comes in. Kaya I agree with President Elsie that it should always start at home, that you should empower your kids by providing them with the right awareness of what's really happening, of what's the reality. And people are not always nice, as you mentioned earlier. So there are, yung mga online predators. So sabi ko, ito pa, you know what, I'm so OC about it. My kids are using Facebook. So I also monitor their friends. Kapag hindi ko kilala, sino to? Why is he your friend? Why is she your friend? Kung hindi namin kilala, walang common friends, I ask them to delete. Diba?
Totoo
Kasi,
yan.
Totoo yan, President Elsie, di ba you mentioned?
Yes.
Isang picture ng cartoon. Sino to, di ba?
Yes. O yung mga anime.
Opo, someone pretending to be, for God knows, baka naman po online predator nga. Kaya I'm very vigilant about those things.
Actually, hindi lang sa kids kahit tayo. Like ako, sometimes I would receive, they will add me as friends on Facebook. I'm like, but I don't know you. Why are you adding me? Hindi tayo magkakilala. Bakit po gustong makita ang whereabouts ko? So hindi ko rin pinapansin yun. I agree with you, with both of you, with you, Miss Elsie and Miss Maricel, that you really have to be picky and you really have to filter for your protection and privacy. Kasi once anything goes out online, it's there forever. For me, kasi of course, social media is part of my job, di ba? For me, it's a gift and a curse. So as long as you know how to use it, you will benefit from it. But once na, pwede ka rin kasing masubject for, katulad yan, harassment or online crimes, and you don't want that. Ayaw natin yan sa'yo, ayaw natin yan sa atin, sa pamilya mo, let alone sa mga bata. How is the Safe Spaces Act different from the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act? And also, is this any way related sa cybercrime law of the Philippines?
Actually, related lahat yun. Yung cyberspace law at saka yung sexual harassment. At yung bastos sa law, related lahat. Tapos parang binuo nga siya dito sa Safe Space Act, no? So, yung online sexual abuse and exploitation of children is parang silent pandemic yan diba? Na ang effect niya ay permanent, and it has devastating effects on children's mental health and psychological well-being.
So this could be a significant example of a case that could encompass the Safe Spaces Act, the Cybercrime Law, and Anti-Sexual Harassment Act. Someone who is in a relationship, and then eventually they broke up and they had intimate pictures or videos, and then let's say the woman or the lady doesn't want to entertain the guy anymore or to give him another chance, and then the guy decides to take revenge and then threaten her that if she doesn't take him back, he could post videos and pictures of them online. So that's an act of harassment in the sense na you are forcing someone to do an action and then threatening them if you don't agree to do that action. So this case, when reported, could be sanctioned under the Safe Spaces Act law, cybercrime, kasi it happened on the online space. And at the same time, it also encompasses the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act. Kasi there's a threat with a sexual context.
It's very difficult for abused women to report the abuses committed against them because, of course, there is fear, and sometimes they would perceive that there are threats on their life. But I believe that the rights that should be reinforced at the onset when they decide to report against their abusers is to file a protection order. Because the protection order will protect them from any form of threat against the person they are going to complain. The protection order, this is a relief granted, and the purpose of which is to safeguard the victim survivor from further harm, minimizing any disruption in the victim survivor's daily life, and facilitating the opportunity and ability of the victim survivor to independently regain control over her life. So in cases wherein there is the victim really fears for her life, probably the advice that I would give that person would be to enlist the help of any family members, because the filing of a protection order, be it BPO, the Barangay Protection Order, the Temporary Protection Order, or the PPO, can be done by a family member, a parent, a guardian of the offended party, ascendants, descendants, or any relative within the fourth civil degree, officers or social workers of the DSWD, police officers, punong barangay o barangay kagawad, lawyer or counselor, therapist, healthcare worker, or at least 2 concerned individual in their barangays. In that way, these concerned persons can file the petition on behalf of the abused person, and of course, once the barangay will see that complaint, they can already issue the barangay protection order. So it will already protect the abused person from further harm from her abuser. Or the court can immediately issue a temporary protection order once the court will be able to verify that there is really threat on the life of the complainant or on the part of the abused person. Once the abused person decides to file a complaint against her abuser, of course there are considerations to think about, like financial support for herself and her family, and also the cost of the litigation, because you really have to spend when you go to court. And if you're going to hire a lawyer, you really have to have money for this. But then, if there is a financial constraint, then the abused person can, of course, first for the financial for the support for the family, if that is her concern, then she, with the petition, if she files a petition in court for a protection order, then in that petition, she can already pray for a support pendente lite, meaning pending the legal action, the court can adjudge support to the complainant. Now, if the financial constraint would be in terms of the legal fees or the legal expenses she gonna incur in prosecuting the case against her abuser, then I would suggest that the person can, of course, under RA 9262, one of her rights is to seek the help of the public attorney's office. And I suppose, because it is very clear there that the rights of the abused or the victim is guaranteed, that she can seek the help of the PAO, then I suppose that there is no more indigency requirement, because we know for a fact that if you go to the PAO, you will be required to produce a certificate that you are an indigent. But in this particular case, there is no qualification. The law states that the person, the abused, the victim, can seek the help of the public attorney's office. Now, she can also go to the IDP free legal aid services or any agency who provides free legal services. So, that would solve the financial constraint in prosecuting a case against her abuser. Suppose that already a permanent protection order issued by the court, and with the protection order, it will really protect her from any harm, because a violation of the protection order would subject the person violating. He can be cited for contempt of court, he can be imprisoned, and he can be charged criminally for that. So that alone will give a protection to the person, to the victim, even after the case has already been terminated. because the protection order is something which is permanent unless it is sooner revoked by the court. If the respondent would petition the court and will say that there is no more reason to have this protection order be maintained, or if the victim herself would petition the court that it be set aside already. Otherwise, the permanent protection order will remain. So that will be a lifetime protection for the victim, not to be harmed by her abuser.
Nag-pandemic. Since the pandemic happened, tumaas ba ang mga number of reported cases natin when it comes to yung mga sa na-harass or violence against women?
So we actually have a report from the Philippine Commission on Women. This was data from December 2020. So according to them, from the referral services for VOW of the Philippine Commission on Women, the cases reported tripled during the pandemic. So one of the factors could be marami po kasing nawalan ng trabaho. So there were mostly cases of economic abuse, sexual harassment, rape. Kasi syempre lahat nasa bahay, di ba? Walang trabaho. So cases of violence are very rampant due to the pandemic.
So talagang that's why we are we are really trying our best na i-inform ang mga tao about their rights and how this law can protect them, because napawawa ko dun sa sinabi mo, Miss Maricel, three times, triple.
Wow,
So
yeah.
parang that's
Shocking.
high.
But actually, according to the United Nations, since the outbreak of COVID-19, yung emerging data and reports from those on the front lines have shown that all types of violence against women and girls, particularly domestic violence, has intensified. And for the RA 11313, which we call the Safe Spaces Act, to ensure that it is being enforced, yung mga privately owned places open to the public, like restaurants and retail stores, they must adopt a zero tolerance. Dapat merong mga CCTV, and they should make this CCTV footages available whenever there are perpetrators.
Very important. Kaya ngayon, importante yung mga CCTV, hindi for display lang. Kasi yung ibang
That's right.
establishments po, di ba? May CCTV pero hindi siya working. The hope is because of the Safe Spaces Act and because we are empowering them with information, alam na nila yung rights nila. And I hope we can make a stand for these women. And, nakaka-bother yung ganong. I don't know what will happen in 2022. I hope yung cases hindi naman magdoble palalo. And ang importante is maintindihan nila na they have the right to really fight for this, 'di ba? And may tutulong sa inyong mga organizations.
That's right.
Hindi po you don't have to go through this alone. There are organizations na pwedeng mag-assist sa inyo or tumulong sa inyo if ever you decide to fight and you decide to file a complaint. Thank you so much, Miss Maricel and Miss Elsie. Do you have any final advice for our listeners and sa ating viewers on this topic?
Okay, kami po, speaking for Zonta, ay katuwang ng mga government agencies at aming mga partner organizations upang ipatupad ang mga programa at mga proyekto na makakapagpalawak ng kaalaman upang gawing ligtas ang lahat ng miyembro ng komunidad mula sa pampublikong lugar, trabaho, paaralan at maging sa cyberspace. Kaya sama-sama po nating patunayan na tayong mga Pilipino ay marespeto at maging bahagi tayo ng komunidad na walang pang-aabuso. And I would also like to reiterate, as we have mentioned earlier, if you or someone who is going through or experiencing any form of abuse, such as harassment, you have a voice. You don't have to be silenced, and help is available. And it is very important that you know your rights. because knowing your rights empowers you to stand up for yourself and also for someone who could be going through or experiencing abuse. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Maricel. Thank you for that wonderful advice and words coming from you. Thank you. What about you, Miss Elsie?
Well, sexual abuse happens to individual women and girls, but fighting back is fighting against it on your own, diba? You might feel alone, but there are organizations like the Zonta Club, no, Zonta International, through the Zonta Clubs that can support you. We also have the Z for the high school students and the Golden Z Clubs for the college students, who will be able to assist you to file your complaints. At Zonta, we have women looking out for other women.
That is so reassuring. Ayan, you have Zonta Club, you have organizations behind you.
Well, Zonta Club is always open for members, no? Kung kayo, may mga kabataan tayo ngayon na nakikinig, if you would like to join the Z Club, no, just let us know. We can form a Z Club in your school. We can talk to your teachers or your principal, and we will gladly put up a Z Club in your school. And
Wonderful.
For college students, we also have the Golden Z Club, as I have mentioned a while ago.
Okay, so we are also currently, our 16 days of activism campaign is ongoing. So we started last November 25 and it will be until December 10. So you can follow our Facebook page. There will be activities and events relating to the Safe Spaces Act. We will have a webinar, a follow-through webinar, wherein we have featured speakers, the likes of Attorney Lorna Kapunan and Philippine Commission on Women Chairperson Sandy Montano, and also a representative from the Sagip, Muntinlupa, who can discuss in detail what the Safe Spaces Act does and how it protects us.
All right. Thank you so much. We will have everything, all the details in the description box and also on the show notes. So again, maraming salamat po, Miss Maricel Lujero and Miss Elsie Enverga for joining us today and imparting your knowledge when it comes to the Safe Spaces Act. And once again, this is Empowered Talks. This is your host, Rama Miklat. Until my next episode, bye!